Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Borealis Caloura. This watch is available from borealiswatch.com on pre-order for €125, which is a 50% deposit of the €250 selling price. I understand that Borealis will have stock of the watches from March 2025, so we'll begin shipping then. So the watch is clearly an homage to the Oris Aquis, very similar proportions. This is the dark sunray green version. It will also be available in purple blue sunburst, black sunburst and silver white sunburst options. So firstly, let's look at the travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the travel case comes in this white cardboard sleeve. Chocolate brown PU leather engraved with the Borealis emblem. I'll show you the interior. 3 pockets to the flap lid, as you can see, and we have a contrasting yellow velour fabric with 2 elasticated straps. Good stitching throughout and good finishing to the PU leather. I think it's a credible option and an alternative to the default option of using a cardboard or plastic watch box, which is the usual case for low tier pieces at €250, so I like it. Now, with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 41mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48mm, we have a thickness of 14.2mm, and we have an integrated external lug width of 11mm. The integrated bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lug down to 18mm at the 2-button push clasp. The 2-button push clasp is well executed, beautiful lustre to the 316L grade stainless steel, high definition engraving to the Borealis logo, as you can see, light resistance to the 2 triggers, nice heavy gauge of metal, and we've got flawless mirror polishing to the bezels, no sharp corners, no sharp edges, so it's very well finished. The interior is solid mill 316L grade stainless steel, as one would expect, beautiful lustre to it, no sharp edges. Now, there are QC issues with it. If you look at the solid milled internals, so the clasp where it joins the end of the integrated bracelet, we have excessive play in the hinge pin. The main pin in the centre also has some play, and then on the other side, where the internal of the micro adjustment clasp joins the milled clasp internal, we can see some play. Now, the cumulative effect of the 3 hinge pins having excessive play is it rattles, and it's a disappointment. At €250, there's no excuse for having this kind of QC issue. The tolerances of the hinge pins are very easy to get correct, so those three hinge pins need to be tightened up. Now, on a positive note, there is something I like about it, and Borealis deserve credit for, because it's got micro adjustment. If you look at the mechanism, it's very similar to the micro adjustment used on Christopher Ward watches. And bear in mind, the Christopher Ward Trident series is a far more expensive mid-tier piece. This is only €250, but has a very similar micro adjustment clasp. You simply put your thumbnail into the spring-loaded trigger, and that deploys it, and you get a full 10mm of a micro adjustment, 5 clicks, 2mm each, which I'll show you. Each click has a nice loud audible click, and there's no play in it. It's a very tight spring-loaded action. The ratcheting mechanism works very well. So I'll just show you from the outside. As you can see, we have a full 10mm of adjustment. And I really like that alternative to using a glide lock style clasp or simply drilling holes in the flanks of the clasp. Some Chinese made watches, for example, use 4 or 5 micro adjustments as an alternative to a 5mm EasyLink diver's extension, or alternatively a glide lock style mechanism. But this ratcheting mechanism works very well, and I think they deserve full credit for this. It's just a shame that they have this QC issue of the 3 hinge pins which need tightening up. Right, so we have a flat sapphire crystal with triple AR coating on the underside, and the triple AR coating does a good job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the flat sapphire crystal. Good symmetry to the green sunburst dial. The applied indices are mirror polished to a good standard, as are the mirror polished dolphin hands. One thing I really like about it is the proportion of the dolphin hands. Often it's a case with Chinese-made watches that the hands are undersized, both in length and also proportion. But Borealis deserve full credit here, because if you look at the tip of the Dauphine minute hand, it extends all the way to the white minute ticks on the chapter ring. The hour hand extends all the way to the indices on the dial, and the arrowhead second hand tip also extends to the minute tick. So they are the full length required. And I really think the Dauphine hands complement the symmetry of the indices. Citing the date complication at 6 o'clock is good. This is clearly an homage to the Aquis, so it follows the same symmetrical dial layout, and I like the date at 6, although I do think it would look more aesthetically pleasing if they used a black dates wheel with contrasting white Arabic numerals rather than a white dates wheel with black Arabic numerals, but this is subjective. Some collectors like the legibility of a white date wheel. So the dial is good, and I like the colour tone. In low light conditions it looks black, but in direct sunlight or bright light conditions it looks deep sunburst green, and it does add interest to it. Otherwise it would be a monochrome piece with just a black bezel and black dial. With regards to the integrated bracelet, finished to a good standard. Doesn't rattle, doesn't have excessive play in the links, so the screw pins are good tight fits. Flawless mirror polishing to the outer links, which contrasts with the brushed satin finish, which has a beautiful luster to the centre links. The flanks are polished to a flawless mirror finish, and we have screw pins, which is good. They didn't use the cost-cutting measure of push pins, which is nice to see at a low-tier piece. Articulates very well, no stiff links, but it does feel tight. So I like the fact that it doesn't rattle. It's not a sloppy bracelet. It's actually got very good tolerances. And they just need to improve those 3 hinge pins in the clasp to raise the standard. I'll show you the screw down stainless steel case back. As you can see, it's engraved with a mermaid, and also the specification, 300 meters and automatic. Nicely engraved. It doesn't have any sharp edges or burrs to the high definition engraving of the mermaid. As you can see, it's perfectly flat in the centre, so it sits very close to the wrist, and it provides a hermetic seal to 300 meters of water resistance. The underside to the integrated lugs are finished very well, no sharp edges, no burrs, and there are no sharp edges to the bracelet, and the links don't pull arm hairs, so it's a very well finished bracelet. I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, the thing to note is, this is a hefty piece. It's 41 millimeters with an integrated bracelet, so it is heavy as one would expect. It's 187 grams. So straight away I'm going to say to you, if you are a collector with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you can rule this piece out because it's too tall and top heavy at 14.2 millimeters, and also it has too much heft for a smaller wrist of 187 grams. Now I appreciate with a smaller wrist, you're going to remove 5 to 6 links from the integrated bracelet, and that will reduce the heft down to circa 160 to 170 grams. But still, heavy piece. Does feel top heavy, and even on my 8-inch wrist, it is a large piece. It does wear with wrist presence at 14.2 millimeters thick. It's not going to easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So for a daily wear piece, one has to consider that. For a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, it does feel comfortable to wear for long periods of time because there's a nice heavy gauge to the 2-button push clasp and the links are heavy. So the bracelet and the clasp do balance the head of the piece very well as per the Oris Aquis. It does have very similar proportions to the 41mm version of the Aquis. But tall piece, heavy piece, and large on the wrist, as you can see, 41mm. If you do like large pieces and you do have a large wrist, then yes, you will enjoy the heft and you will enjoy the wrist presence. I would like to see it slimmed down to below 14mm, but unfortunately that's going to be difficult with an NH35A because it is a thick movement, and therefore on a 300 meter water resistant piece, one would have to sacrifice the thickness of the case back and the crystal in order to reduce the thickness of the head of the piece, and that would mean reducing the water resistance from 300 to 200. So I can understand why they've used a thick sapphire crystal and a thick stainless steel case back to give it 300 meters as per the Oris Aquis, which this is an homage to. Very aesthetically pleasing, and the dark green sunburst style does contrast very well with the black glossy ceramic bezel insert. Right, so let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel, screw down crown, knurled finish and engraved to a good standard with the Borealis B, mirror polished background to it, no sharp edges, very nice quality knurling. So let's test unscrewing it. Very smooth, very impressive, bearing in mind it's a low tip price point piece. It's the kind of screw down crown execution one would expect with a mid-tier piece costing in excess of €500. So to get this kind of smoothness at €250 is good. So in the first, when it's fully unscrewed, we can manually wind it to top up the NH35A power reserve to its maximum 40 hours. One can feel the tension in the main spring gradually building up. It's very satisfying to use the NH35A. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. Now if you look at the date window at 6 o'clock, you can see rotating the crown anti-clockwise advances the date complication. Nice positive clicks to the NH35A. This is something I really like about it. It's a robust, well-proven workhorse movement. Nice positive clicks to the date. So it works very well. Second click is the time setting position, and that hacks the movement. If you look closely at the arrowhead tip to the second hand, you can see it's now hacked. It's stopped the movement dead. So one can set the time precisely to the second. No backplay clockwise and anti-clockwise to the NH35A. Really solid gearing. One can feel the resistance. And I really like that solid feeling to the NH35A. Now I understand that Borealis are going to make date and no date versions of this Caloura. And the no-date versions are going to use the NH38, which is the same as the 35A, but just with the date complication deleted. The positive benefit of that is it deletes the phantom date setting position. So the no-date version won't have a first click, a phantom date setting position. It will simply have one click to set the time, and the NH35A versions will have the date complication. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the arrowhead second hand begins to sweep around the dial once again. So let's test screwing it back down. Immediate thread pickup, it's very good. I like the smoothness of the internal thread, meshing very well with the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. It unscrews and screws down very well. 300 meters of hermetic seal, it's very good. Now, a criticism I have of this is the two flathead screws in the lugs, as you can see. I appreciate this is an homage to the Aquis, so it does replicate the design elements of the Aquis very well. But with an Oris Aquis, the purpose of the two flathead screws is to screw the removable lugs to the right-hand flank of the case. But if you look closely, you can see these lugs are part of the case. They're not removable. The reason why Oris do this with Aquis is the idea is if the watch gets impact damaged, for example, if a diver hits the lugs and dents them, one doesn't have to replace the case, or it doesn't have to be laser welded. They can simply unscrew the two screws and remove the lugs and then replace the lugs rather than replacing the case, which makes sense. But these two screws don't serve any meaningful purpose other than being decorative, and I think they should be deleted. I think the lugs would look better without the flathead screws because the lugs can't be unscrewed, so they simply shouldn't be there. It's fair enough on an Aquis because they serve a purpose, but this doesn't serve a purpose. So that's something Borealis might consider, although it is subjective. Some collectors might like it looking very close to the Aquis in terms of design. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up. So this uses BGW9 on the ceramic bezel inserts, the hands and also the dial. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is clearly 5 to 6 layers of BGW9. Now with Chinese-made watches, often they will cut production costs by using Luminova rather than Super Luminova because it's weaker and therefore less expensive. Alternatively, they will only apply 3 to 4 layers of Super Luminova on the dial, hands and also the ceramic bezel insert because it cuts production costs. And with high volume batch production, for example with Pagani Design, they are making batches of 1,000 watches per batch. So saving $1 per piece on 100,000 watches is 100,000 euro, 100,000 US dollars saved on production. So that's why they do it. They apply 3 to 4 layers rather than 5 to 6. I'm pleased to see that Borealis haven't cut any corners. This is clearly 5 to 6 layers on the Dolphin hands, the applied indices and also the ceramic bezel inserts. And I'm pleased that they haven't just used BGW9 on the Lume Pip and Triangle. They've also inlaid the first 15-minute ticks on the first quarter of the bezel, the Arabic numerals and also the other hour markers. And now, the thing I really like about it, and they deserve credit for this, there is a perfect colour tone match between the lume used on the bezel, the dial and the hands. The blue tone is exactly the same. Often it's the case with Chinese-made watches that there's a mismatch on the indices and also the hands. They're a different tone of lume, and also the ceramic ceramic bezel insert can be a different tone. So perfect colour match, nice bright BGW9, clearly 5 to 6 layers. We're not looking at 3 to 4 here. It's not fading. With 3 to 4 layers of BGW9, it will initially emit a very bright light, but then it quickly begins to fade. But as you can see, there is no fading whatsoever. This is mid-tier level, over €500 level BGW9 application. So I'm very pleased to see this in a low tier piece costing €250. Borealis really deserve credit. This is outstanding BGW9 superluminova. Right, so let's test the 120 click unidirectional bezel execution. Nice loud audible clicks to the 120 clicks. It feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation, which is good. On some bezels, it gets tight and loose. This feels smooth all the way through. It's got a medium firm resistance, which I like. Now, unfortunately, we do have a QC issue. There is lateral side-to-side play. I'm just going to check it in 4 positions for consistency. Yes, unfortunately, it's all the way through. So, we've got significant lateral side-to-side play. This is a QC issue that needs to be tightened up. Let's check the alignment. Right, so as you can see, look closely at the Lume pip and triangle. I'm going to bring it up to 12 o'clock. Right, so we're now 1 click before. The next click should perfectly align it. But unfortunately, the Lume pip and triangle is slightly to the left of the 12 o'clock index on the dial. So I'm going to check it 2 more times for consistency, because when I level criticism at a brand, I like to be consistent and fair rather than unfair. Right, so now 1 click before 12. I'm going to bring it up to the final click, so it should be bang on 12 o'clock, and as you can see, the Lume pip and triangle is slightly to the left of the 12 o'clock index. One last time. Right, so we're now 1 click before. You can clearly see the Lume pip and triangle is 1 click to the right of the 12 o'clock index. The next click should be bang on 12 o'clock or 60. And unfortunately, you can see the Lume pip and triangle is again 3 out of 3 times slightly to the left. This is a fundamental QC issue that Borealis cannot ignore. Now, on a positive note, this is a pre-production sample and we're now in November, so they do have time in December, January and February prior to the watches being shipped in March 2025 to customers. They have the chance to correct this QC issue, both the lateral side-to-side play and also the misalignment. Bezel alignment is a fundamental, and it's very easy to get correct, because when they make the watches in the factory, they press on the stainless steel bezel, and then after that they can apply the ceramic bezel insert because it's supplied with an adhesive ring. So they simply set the ceramic bezel insert into the stainless steel bezel, and therefore they can line up the Lume pip and triangle bang on 12 o'clock, the index on the dial, to get perfect alignment. And then with the 120 click ratcheting mechanism, it will always align bang on 60 or bang on 12. So it's unacceptable, regardless of this being a low tier price point piece at €250. Bezel alignment and lateral side-to-side play need to be perfect. So I'm disappointed with that, and it's a real shame because the finishing of the head of the piece and the bracelet and the clasp is excellent. It's just a shame that we've got this QC issue. The crown execution is excellent, the Lume is excellent. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. You will all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A. The same will apply to the NH38, which is effectively the same movement with the date complication deleted, which is going to be used in the no date version. It has 24 joules, it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. 40-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. Hand winding and hacking are useful complications. Date complication is also good. And we have a stated accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. But however, it is possible to regulate the NH35A to a better accuracy than -20 to +40. Borealis deserve credit. This one's well regulated. It's running consistently at +6 seconds per day, which is well within the -20 to +40 limits, and +6 is very good. So NH35A, correct choice. It's a robust movement, reliable, well proven, and it's accurate when it is well regulated. And I like that they've chosen to use the NH38 to delete the phantom date setting position on the no date versions. So correct choice, and I think it's a good movement. No reliability issues whatsoever. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the price point of this piece in March 2025 will be €250. It's available on pre-order for 50% deposit, €125. The specification is strong, 250 metres, AAAR coating, BGW9 is outstanding, and we have the micro adjustment clasp, which is very unusual at this price point. Quality of the finishing is excellent on the head of the piece, bezel, bracelet, clasp and case back, crown. Everything is good. The negatives are the play in the hinge pins. That needs to be tightened up, that's a QC issue. And we've also got the lateral side play QC issue and their bezel alignment QC issue. So we've got three fundamental QC issues that need to be tightened up. The value is good. One cannot say it isn't good because BGW9, AAAR and also the micro adjustment clasp, it's all strong specification, 300 metres. Unfortunately, I cannot say it's good quality or excellent quality due to the QC issues of the hinge pins and also the bezel. So therefore I'm going to say the quality is poor. Now I'm hoping Borealis will resolve the issues detailed in this review before production in March 2025, before they begin selling the watches to customers. And if that is the case, then I would upgrade the value and the quality to excellence because I think it has the potential if those issues are resolved. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Borealis Caloura. Please feel free to post your comments below the video. Thank you for watching.